get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Oh yeah! Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernier Bust Show. You know, we may end up slow jamming this news. I just want to warn you in advance. But before that, why you should take a chance on the socialist. We started out with this article yesterday, Paul Waters-Smith, and we got to 5 points. The power of the bully pulpit, running a working class left-wing campaign, speaking like a good organizer and labor leader, already proven an enormous boon to the left, moving the discussion and the discourse to the left. Radical politics is not a luxury at this point in history because of climate change. And then I said, I'll let you read the rest. And then I went and read the rest. And let me tell you, you got to read this. Let us begin with why the presidency is such an important prize or even worth worrying about. Near the end of Obama's 2 terms, it had become fashionable to opine on the limited power of the presidency. The theory was useful in explaining away Obama's failure to enact anything approaching an agenda during his tenure in office. In the way Dr. Cornel West looks at it, it's a way to explain why Obama sucked so hard. But this apologia mostly served as a mask for a more uncomfortable truth. The Obama administration, funded by Wall Street and run by the likes of infamous corporatists like the Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel and top economic advisor Larry Summers, boo, simply never intended to overhaul our society or significantly redistribute economic and political power to the working majority. These days, Obama himself essentially admits this. He spent his time bragging about having expanded fossil fuel production and encouraging the left to dream small and give up. In fact, the U.S. presidency is the most powerful office in the history of the world. Despite its limitations and constraints, it holds vast potential to shape political reality. We have seen a glimpse of this power used clumsily by Donald Trump. And they go on and they talk about Romney getting his words served back to him on a plate as Trump grinned victoriously. I'll let you read the other things about how Trump has used his power, because it's disgusting and I don't want to read it out loud. As much as those of us who have committed ourselves to grassroots organizing would like to believe otherwise, the occupant of the White House has made a key difference in the success or failure of working class organizing. During the height of radical labor action during the late 1930s and early 1940s, which I've argued in the past did pave the way for FDR to be able to achieve the New Deal. This radical labor action is why big money was willing to negotiate with FDR. And I said earlier, we had 2 active socialist parties and an active communist party, and that was what was scaring the rich people so much. During the height of radical labor action, even communist, socialist, and anarchist labor organizers would appeal to workers by declaring that the president wants you to join a union. FDR was very good at negotiating with unions, and he could calm them down by his promises. I hope we never get to the point again where even Bernie Sanders could calm down union leaders to the point where they were less rabidly seeking justice, but that's another story. The president wants you to join a union. The encouragement of the president was one of the most potent tools to help overcome fear among workers, though FDR never so clearly called on workers to join unions as Senator Sanders does now. Yes! It was the interplay of FDR's modestly pro-labor presidency and rigorous deep organizing, plus strident working class militancy, that produced an explosion of labor power. It was not bottom-up organizing alone, as essential and central an element as that is. That's the answer to the vote blue Bernie people who say all we need to do is be more organized and canvass and have our bottom-up organizing. and let them rig it again. No, 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 no. We need the power of labor, and only Bernie is going to do that. Consider the previous eras of labor history. Worker uprisings in the 1870s and 80s were put down with violent bloodbaths by police, Pinkertons, National Guard troops, ordered in by presidents. They were vilified and slandered in the press, and they would be again. These uprisings were crushed, only to be followed by a period of hyper-exploitation and consolidated elite power. That's what happened after Captain Ronnie took out the air traffic controllers and broke their union. Then we've had an unprecedented, well, let's read it again. We had a period of hyper-exploitation and consolidated elite power. That's what we've had since the Thatcher-Reagan era. It's one that brought the Jim Crow era with its formalized segregation and widespread lynching of African Americans, along with Latinos in the West. A generation later, as the IWW and the Socialist Party of America begin to win real victories, another president, Woodrow Wilson, had thousands of radicals and labor organizers arrested in a matter of weeks. Several thousand radicals were deported, decimating the IWW nearly overnight and gutting opposition to elite rule for more than a decade. At its peak, the Socialist Party had 1,000 elected officials around the country. After World War I, only a small handful remained. Without social movements, worker organizing, and an explicit and political left, there is no hope of saving ourselves from the dystopian future right-wingers seem to relish so much. But we must make hard-nosed assessments. The reality is that a movement-friendly and pro-labor chief executive in the White House is an enormous aid to both the proliferation and success of mass-based organizing. And not having such a chief executive makes it that much harder for activists to succeed. And make no mistake, having Elizabeth Warren as that chief executive would make it very difficult for labor. She is a capitalist to her bones. She wants to have the rich captains of industry make concessions to make it a little bit better for labor. She does not want to be the chief executive of labor. That does not mean that electoral politics should be the main focus of organizing. The history of candidate-focused progressivism has been a disaster, from the populist movement backing William Jennings Bryan in 1896 to the later candidacies of John F. Kennedy, Eugene McCarthy, Jesse Jackson, and Barack Obama. Even when they have gotten elected, these leaders have failed to deliver because a president without a movement is indeed hamstrung. A president, on the other hand, who actively encourages non-electoral movement organizing might be a different story, and casting a vote for the first viable, self-described socialist and genuine pro-labor presidential candidate in history is a small investment for the potential upside. So let's look at, we need to get to Abby Martin and what's going on in South America. And this is an hour-long show, so I'm not going to give you too much of this. I just want to give you this little snippet of what's going in South America, because it makes the case that what Bernie wants to do with labor would work. So here's Abby.
I want to move to another current issue that is making headlines recently, and it's about the recent developments in Bolivia. There's a lot of confusion on this topic in the German mainstream media. It is being claimed that Evo Morales' ouster was his own making due to election fraud, popular discontent, and also because of his persistence in rewriting the constitution. What do you make of these counter-arguments, and what is really unfolding there?
Sure. I mean, this is kind of the latest in a long line of CIA-backed coups, to be honest. I mean, Of course, the corporate media is telling us, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what is really going on the ground. So let's break down a couple of these myths that are being perpetrated and propagated by corporate media outlets and essentially their lackeys. So first of all, there was fraud in the election, right? And there was voting irregularities. Well, a think tank called the Center for Economic and Policy Research based out of DC has broken down the statistical facts, and they have found that there are absolutely no voting irregularities in the data, and they found that there was no fraud whatsoever. Yeah. Now, of course, while these tallies were still being conducted, you had Carlos Meza, the opposition candidate, coming out saying he wasn't going to recognize the final results. You had politicians like Marco Rubio, Donald Trump already taking to Twitter saying fraud is being conducted. How would they know that when the election hadn't even concluded yet? The Organization of American States, which is essentially a cutout of the U.S. government, funded 60% by U.S. funds, but it's kind of proposed as this impartial organization because it's comprised of a conglomerate of Latin American states, but primarily it kind of does the bidding of the U.S. empire. It went out ahead and said, there were voting irregularities. We're very concerned. And then, of course, the U.S. follows suit and says we stand behind the OAS. So all of these things put together has made it seem like, oh, my God, the election was fraudulent. Oh, my God, Evo Morales needs to resign. And of course, they said, oh, he resigned, right? It wasn't a coup. What do you call it when the military deposes a democratically elected leader who was deemed by the highest court in the land the year prior that he could indeed run for a fourth term? Agree with it or not, these judges are elected. Unlike the United States, the Supreme Court judges in Bolivia are elected, and they did actually grant him a fourth term to run.
There's a lot of garbage going on in Bolivia, and you aren't hearing about it anywhere else. So I just wanted to put a snippet there, and then I'll link to this so you can go watch the hour-long show. It's worth your time. Now, Meagan Day. I told Meagan on her Facebook yesterday that she should run for president. I think she may be too young. I can't tell for sure, but when she gets there, when she gets old enough, I think she ought to run for president. This is just a little bit on Elizabeth Warren's healthcare plan.
Think about it as kind of in the reverse, which is that the only way to actually lower prescription drug costs in this country in a way that makes sense is Medicare for all, because that means the government is the single payer, including the single payer for drugs, and that means that they just have like a ton of. Our democratic government has the ability to tell drug companies if you want to sell your pharmaceutical here, it has to be less expensive, period. I mean, so yeah, but you're totally right. That I think this in general is a really good point. You negotiate from a position of strength. The stronger you start, especially if you have a mass movement behind you. I'm not talking about you're some crank, you get up there and nobody wants this thing and you're just like, look, we're going to make, some bizarre change that nobody asked for. And that's not what I mean by negotiating from a position of strength. I mean, asking for...
That's what Elizabeth Warren is doing. She's trying to get something going that has no chance in hell of passing because she has no power behind it. She's not leveraging Medicare for all. And that's because her daughter works in the industry. She has no intention of ever fixing Medicare for all. You could tell that by her stupid phase-in plan. But anyway, Meagan will tell you more about it.
For the maximum thing that there is an actual mass movement behind. And that is Medicare for all. And it's not a public option. It's Medicare for all.
Yeah. Right. Yay, Meagan. Now this is the Revolt Against Plutocracy rap sheet. This is a Facebook group. I have kind of kept this on the back burner because it's a little bit of a guerrilla warfare group. Revolt Against Plutocracy. But we need to get in there. We need to get our groups joined. We have pages and pages of Facebook groups that you can infiltrate and deliver the Bernie or Bust message. I posted in here this morning about this article. Obama said he would speak up to stop Bernie Sanders' nomination. The oligarchs are losing their shit. Obama and Clinton both have come out. They've called people Russian assets. They've been working hard to help us not dream too big. Oh, the American people, they don't want real change. They don't want hope and change. You ran on hope and change, and you got elected on hope and change, and then you did not deliver hope and change. And now you're trying to tell us, oh, no, maybe too much hope and change isn't good for you. You are working. You are a shill. President Barack Obama, you are a shill for big money. I think, these are my words, I believe Obama and Hillary could turn the tide in our favor. Same with any rich or famous people who weigh in. The plutocrats are getting very nervous about Bernie's recent surge. We all need to continue to sow the seeds of mistrust of the neoliberal elite, incremental, do-nothing supremacists who don't give a shit about U.S. working-class citizens. I predict that the true burners will begin to openly and boldly ridicule the vote blue no matter who dupes I think this is going to happen more and more over the next few months. And it's not pretty. It's going to be ugly. But revolution ain't pretty or reasonable. I also predict that blue-collar workers who lean progressive on economic issues, even if they are socially conservative, and younger progressives will grow increasingly militant about oligarchical meddling in our elections, including corporate media meddling. I said that to Victor this morning in a conversation, and he said, I hope so. A former president is hard to combat. If Bernie or Bust Television had 1 million instead of 100 followers, I'd be more confident about that. And so you heard it from Victor. We need to get more followers for the Bernie or Bust show, and we only have a few months to really get this powerfully out there. We have other people. I'm not the only one, but I'm pointing you in the direction of all the other people and showing you in my own inimitable fashion more about labor. Crystal ball too, but mostly I've not seen the slant that I bring about labor, organizing the labor. That's the most important thing that Bernie brings, and it isn't touted that way on even the most leftist channels. So I think Bernie or Bust is worthy of the television show here is worthy of more widespread production, more widespread distribution. And if that happened, I think Victor is right. I think that the people high up would lose their shit if they saw that much support for a radical thinker such as myself. Anyway, we gotta keep on burning here. Pete Buttigieg, Millennials' Bane. I'm going to link to this article so you can read it by Molly Roberts. It's really funny, and it's really true about Pete Buttigieg. I don't even like to talk about him, so I'll just let you read it. Medicare for all means to each according to their need. Excellent article by Meagan Day. I want to plug that because she should run for president on this party platform. And then we got from Victor again, party unity my ass was 2 to 3 times larger than Bernie or Bust. That was Hillary. So 2019 polling conclusively shows that Bernie or Trump of the faction of voters is still able to assist President Trump if Democratic Party nominee's name is not Bernard Sanders. We're not saying they're right to do this, but we're saying that Bernie or Trump is something that the mainstream should not be ignoring, even though they are. And finally, Slow Jam the News with Senator Bernie Sanders.
I think you're saying you'd like to slow jam this news. That's right. I want to slow jam the news, and I'm not the only one.
Look at that. Bernie.
Hello, I'm Senator Bernie Sanders, and I, too, would like to slow jam this news. Hit me 5 times! During last week's debate, I went toe-to-toe with my fellow Democrats on the issues that matter most. We need to defeat Trump, the most dangerous president in American history. But we need to do more. We can no longer tolerate 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. I have the experience to fight for that bottom half and to create an economy that works for all of us, not just those on top. Oh, yeah. Bernie Sanders is looking out for your bottom half. He knows it's been neglected for too long. Now he wants to pay it some extra special attention. He's sick and tired of having just a few people on top. That's why Bernie's here to spread the love.
Want to spread a little bit of love, y'all. 50 years of service giving people the power. He's heard it all except the words, please talk louder.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, woke Doc Brown, lately this country's been experimenting with all the wrong positions. So what's your plan to bring us back to the future?
Well, let's start here. We need to enact Medicare for all.
Yeah.
We need to tackle the dangerous threat of climate change. And we need to get big money out of politics. I don't have a super PAC. Instead, I have a grassroots campaign with more individual contributions than any candidate in American history. I am proud of the donations we receive, no matter how small.
You gotta listen to my bed-headed broham. He might not have a super PAC, but he's packing something super. He's all about taking a firm stance against corporations to give the people what they desire.
I know you're joking, but it actually is quite sexy.
Man, just the way you said that has got me feeling the burn. And thanks to Medicare for All, I can get it checked out by my doctor. Because this hunk of Bernie love, well, he wants to take care of all of our bodies.
Bernie loves your body, baby. He'll bring Medicare to all consumers. And if you can't dig that, then okay, boomer.
Now, Senator, I was hoping you could take a minute and talk Bernie to me. We all know you've got a huge heart.
No. It's a normal-sized heart. It's a completely normal, completely fine heart. But continue.
Well, now that you bring it up, what do you say to people who think the Sandman is too mature to be president?
Well, to those people, I'd say that I'm feeling strong, energetic, and more ready than ever to fight for the American people.
Hold on. So what you're saying is...
I do my hair toss, check my nails. Bernie, how you feeling? Hair toss, check my nails. Bernie, how you feeling?
Feeling good as hell.
Yeah.
All right. One last question before me. Wham, bam, thank you, Sam, this interview. I've made a lot of jokes about you in the past. And I even do a Bernie impression that some say is pretty good. But I was thinking, now that you're here, do you want to do a Jimmy impression?
Ha! Ha!
Are you going to do an impression of me?
Jimmy, that was my impression of you.
Jimmy's got a 3rd-degree burn.
We must choose a leader who fights for what's fair.
Who cares more about the people and less about hair?
Cares less about hair. Listen, our battles uphill. We cannot stand still. We'll write our new page like we wrote the damn bill. It starts with a burn, then a fire breaks loose.
That is how we slow jam the news.
Oh, yeah!
Give it up for Senator Bernie Sanders!
Yeah. All right. On that note, keep on burning, you boomers. I love that one. And see you next time. I'm probably going to be out for a few days, but when I get back, we'll burn some more.
Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back.